Hi, and welcome everyone. I am super excited to introduce Tom Briggs, an internationally recognized social media researcher. He has over 20 years of experience and strategic brand building. Tom has worked with organizations ranging from global Fortune 50 companies to startups. And today he's going to dive into the art of building a sustainable and purpose driven personal brand. So he's going to share insights on how to maintain personal integrity, offer your best self both professionally and personally, and find a lasting career meaning. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tom Briggs to the virtual stage. So we're thrilled to have you here today, Tom.
Appreciate it, Lily. Thank you so much. Welcome, BEMORE Festival crew. It's a delight to be able to present and share with you today. Personal brand building is one of my huge passions, and I'm really looking forward to just walking through this journey and ideally giving you some really actionable, useful tips and tools that you can use to build a brand that will scale well throughout your career, throughout your life, really give you a strong sense of meaning, purpose, and really build it based upon your own personal backstory. Personal brand is as unique as you. No one has your unique story. And in tying into that, tapping into who you are um, as a person, your passions, what you're interested in, what your skill set is, that is the path to building a really compelling, sustainable, scalable brand. All right, let's get into it. So, me, as Lily mentioned, 20 years at the overlap of design and brand and marketing. I've had the good fortune of working with B2B, B2C, and then as far as scale, Global Fortune 50, all the way down to pre venture stage startup. I've been mentoring at ADPList since April 2021. And as far as my interests go, brand strategy, I'm a huge fan of cultivating leadership and then just cross-cultural communication. I love travel. Part of the thing I really enjoy about ADP List is chatting with people who have very different backgrounds from my own, and just honestly having my perspective broadened. There's nothing like it. Like I said, collaborations really ranging across the scale. I've spent a lot of time in tech and innovation spaces. I'm a geek at heart, so being able to work with companies like Intel and Samsung, VMware. I remember building my first x86 PC with my dad, so being able to help engineering-led companies tap into what their brand is and connect with their audiences is something really fun for me. Um, Coming to you here from Portland, Oregon, on the upper left-hand coast of the United States. If you know Portland, the home of Nike, world headquarters is right down the road. Had the good fortune to collaborate with them and have learned so much in terms of brand storytelling and brand craft from being in their orbit. Beautiful city. Grew up here. Love the Northwest. If you ever get a chance to come and visit, tons of coffee, tons of hiking, the outdoors. Found that people who really enjoy getting out in the nature love coming from here. Why am I telling you this? We're all a product of our background, our stories, our experience, where you grew up, where you find yourself now. It's part and parcel of what your brand is. Some people here in Portland, they know that we're definitely into social justice. We've loved to protest. Fun fact, the global naked bike ride either started here or was one of we were one of the early cities. So that disruptiveness, that rebelliousness, that's something I've woven into Epigraph, which is my consultancy, brand consultancy, focusing on my background, where I come from. So that's a little bit about me. Just wanted to get you up to speed. I'm a dad, two kids, and an amazing wife. And yeah, so we're gonna get into it. 20 years of career. Started out, almost went into journalism before design and marketing pulled me in. And then over the course of my career, added some other skills, art direction, creative direction. I'm a huge fan of design. I did not start out in design, full transparency, learned by doing, working with brilliant creative directors, art directors, UX designers, in coming to design by doing. Definitely developed a deep appreciation and just the intentionality of how good design is practiced has really resonated with me and is one reason why I love intersecting with the design side of the ADPList community and just sharing my background and experience. All right, I want to show you that I'm practicing what I'm preaching. Personal brand. Your personal brand is a product of your personality, your values, and like I mentioned, your backstory. So these things weave together and sort of make the fabric, make the rope, make the cloth of who you are and what your authentic personal brand is. Like I said, it's as unique as your fingerprints. So owning your story and really recognizing where you've come from. If you don't have one in front of you, this is a great time to maybe grab a journal and a pen. This is, think about what's coming up as you're thinking back and saying, okay, this is where I've, whether you're just starting out in your career or, you spend a few years in, this could be a really good time to think about, okay, what do I stand for? Where do I come from? Who am I? Personal brand, the best, strongest personal brand comes from some deep dive exploration, unpacking who you are, what you believe in, and really what you're all about. Authenticity is a word that's used a lot, but it's so critical to who you are. You want your personal brand to emerge from who you are. And if it's done right, it will feel authentic. It will feel uniquely you and it will emerge. And people will see that, key into that. Future employers will see it, and it will really become this nice consistency throughout your life. All right, diving on. Disclaimer. So, personal brand, as I've said, is personal. This is coming from my perspective. I've shared with you my story. Yours is unique. You are at a certain place in the world, a certain culture, a certain time. This is my perspective. That said, some of the fundamental rules of the road I've seen play out around the world in various corporations for individuals. So adapt this to your unique cultural sensibilities, what you're comfortable with as far as your personal comfort level, and really just make it your own. So I had to put that out there because I know we have people from around the world dialed in. So the fundamental rules, yes, absolutely, but run them to the filter of your personal culture because I want this to be your own. I want you to be able to own this and fundamentally this is something that should inspire you and from which you should draw confidence. I want you to leave this talk today inspired to go and really build that rock solid brand that honestly you can sustain across your life. It may evolve and adapt, but fundamentally you are you. And this taps into some of the deepest components really of who you are and what you want to manifest in this world. All right. So we're getting down to the agenda. Personal brand. What is it? Why should you invest in building it? And how? Getting down to brass tacks, how can you build something that's defensible, sustainable, and really sets you apart from the crowd? Because fundamentally, personal brand will serve you both in your personal life and your career. It's this really nice consistency that comes to who you are and the way in which you find yourself operating in the world. Done well, who you are at work becomes who you are at home, becomes who you are with your friends. There's this really nice consistency that runs throughout your life. People know who you are when it comes to you. There will be time for questions at the end. We're making good time going through this. So if anything comes up, just jot it down. Don't be afraid to ask it as we get into it. All right, I'm gonna hit pause for a second. We're gonna pop up a poll here. Want your feedback. The statement, I'm confident in my personal brand. Are you? Or are you kind of like, I don't know, maybe there's some room to grow? Or you're like, no confidence. This is something I really want to invest in. So tap on that poll. We'll keep it open there for a minute, but really want to, read the room. I want to know who all is here. I'm going to take a real second here. I want to see the chat and just kind of see people checking in. But yeah, we'll keep this open for just 30 seconds. Pop it up there. And this talk is yours. I wanted to serve y'all. Jillian. I'm glad you love Portland. It would welcome you. Coffee, the outdoors. Yeah, no, it's fun. See a lot of UX designers here. Excellent. UI, UX, it's such a powerful key tool. All right. I don't know if I have to vote, but I'm going to vote. Let's see. All right. Working on it is our most popular and totally confident. So we're skewing toward working on it, needs some improvement. Good. Awesome. I'm glad you're here following along. We're going to tackle this together. So appreciate it. Gives us a good level set. Welcome. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to charge onward and get down to it. All right. Lily, do I clear the survey or are you good to? Awesome. So what? Brand is one of these words that we put a lot of weight on. It can mean so many different things to so many different people. You know, you hear the word brand, you think of logo, you think of colorway, you think of photography, at least in the commercial graphic design sense. But fundamentally, my definition for brand is a strategically consistent and intentional presentation. In this case, if it's corporate brand, an organization's uniquely differentiated presence. And fundamentally, what that is consistency across every possible touch point. So it's why, you know, you get a bottle of Coca-Cola, it's going to taste more or less the same wherever you go in the world. It's why the iPhone in your hand feels like the industrial design of walking into that Apple store. It's just that coherence, that consistency, and that intentionality. And that's the beauty of brand craft. That's why there are thousands of brand managers in the world, because achieving that level of consistency requires a lot of deliberate effort, art. I always love contributing to and developing brand standards guides. You know, they can be as short as 10 pages. I've had them go to hundreds and hundreds of pages. Worked with photographic style guidelines for retail for a major apparel manufacturer. It was a book printed, it was that thick because it was so prescriptive. And fundamentally, that's what corporate brand is. It's just that razor consistent presentation. So if that's corporate brand, personal or corporate, yeah. I mean, we look at this, we say corporate brand drives value. So you look at the most valuable brands in the world, they've clearly invested the time and energy and effort to achieve that rock solid consistency where you just always know what you're going to get. And as a result, it's become valued. It is a substantial line item where that brand, that insubstantial, intangible creative asset has accreted tangible, actual, real dollar value that, you know, and for these publicly traded companies moves their bottom line. Crazy, right? I mean, it's just a combination of colors, lines, typography, and vision and values, but it accretes to real, actual, tangible brand that never ceases to blow my mind. Okay, so corporate brand, you're like, okay, we're talking about personal brand here, right? Yes. So what is good for corporate brand is mirrored in personal brand. Strategically consistent, intentional presentation. At this point, though, it's an individual. You're just looking at the traits that emerge from you, again, uniquely differentiated and consistent across all those possible touch and experience points. What are touch points and experience points? Interacting with friends, interacting with family, being in the world of work, engaging on social media. It's that consistency of who we are that brings that interior integrity that really makes us successful, allows us to speak from a position of authority, confidence, and really just owning fundamentally who we are and what we're all about. So why? Selling on this clearly, you're here wanting to learn more about it. We've seen from the poll that most people are somewhat confident but wanting to grow. So why does it make sense to invest in your personal brand, growing it? The marketplace is competitive, and fundamentally, an undifferentiated brand. Another word for that is a commodity, and commodities genuinely command the flat rate of the marketplace. This is true across goods, true across services. So in order to differentiate in a crowded marketplace, as you go out into the world of work, as you look to differentiate in your current role or pivot to the next thing down the road, having that strongly defined personal brand will really enable you to stand out in a global marketplace, really, because barriers are coming down, and we're all trying to compete for the best jobs. Earning what you're worth similarly. So commodities command commodity prices. If you differentiate and show, and put in the thought and put in the intention of articulating how you stand out, maybe as a UX designer or as a writer, or maybe you're a UX designer with that writing capacity with a subspecialty in generative AI. Take your pick. You're really niching down and achieving that clear positioning in the marketplace through your values and what you're all about. And functionally, that's going to enable you to draw that salary that gets you paid what you're worth. Investing in your brand is one of the best things you can do for your career because it's going to set you apart. It's going to help you stand out. It's going to make you genuinely unique and, yeah, functionally allow you to be a differentiated non-commoditized individual because you'll be unique. You'll have a unique story, you'll have a unique perspective, and you'll do justice to the background of where you come from, your backstory, your education, your training, that accumulation of experiences that have brought you to where you are today. Allows you to achieve consistency. When people know you and know what they're going to get from you, it sets their mind at ease. And it doesn't matter if you're a contributing member of a team, maybe you're a mid-level manager directing a team. I think it was Brene Brown, who's the academic, who said, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." If you're clear about who you are and achieve that through a strong personal brand, there's clarity there. Because when someone crosses paths with you, they're like, okay, I know who this person is. I know what they stand for. I know what they're all about. If you're clear about who you are, you can achieve that consistency. It's going to put everyone who comes into your orbit at ease. They're going to feel good and know how to interact with you, know how to engage with you. And then if you're looking ahead, considering your next opportunity, sitting out as a supervisor, you'll be able to achieve that consistency and clarity. You're going to come through. It's going to show, and your confidence will spike because you'll know what you're all about. If you're clear, you can achieve harmony, and that comes from living in integrity. I mentioned, being the same person at home as you are at work, as you are with your friends. If you have these core, central, unchanging values that guide you, these North Star values at work, at home, it allows you to achieve this consistency and be in harmony. As humans, it is stressful for us to have parts of our interior that are out of alignment or just don't quite match. It creates extra psychological, physiological struggle to keep those things up in the air. If those match, and if we're crystallized around what that is, it just takes less effort, allows us to focus on the things that do matter, whether that's relationships or knocking it out of the park with that next project assignment. It just takes a lot of stress off the table, allows us to function more optimally and really just operate at our best, give our best, operate from that core base of what we're all about. Let's see. Be consistent, achieve harmony. AI. I would be derelict in my duties if I did not mention AI somewhere in this. Being confident in who we are and establishing that unique brand allows us to flourish in an era of AI where, AI is resurgent, insurgent, it's not going anywhere. So basically, let's look at what AI does well. Analysis, it aggregates data, it's generative, it draws upon existing things. It's more challenged by drawing inferences or being functionally creative. It's based on an existing data set. So if you have a strong personal brand, you're going to be able to differentiate in the space in a world where AI is emerging and where a lot of content in the data set is oftentimes recycled. They talk about, AI researchers talk about recursion and just the ghosts in the machine that continue to pop up. The stumbling block of AI, at least as it stands now, is that it just continues to recycle and draw upon an existing base of data. If we as humans, our unique capacity is that we can make those leaps beyond what we can see and touch right in front of us to novel spaces. We can make those cognitive leaps functionally. We get to be creative. That's our gift as humans. And in having a strong basis of who we are, a deeply rooted personal brand, it allows us to make those leaps and inferences. It allows us to functionally celebrate the creativity that comes with being human, allows us to, as AI emerges, as we get these brilliant, amazing AI research assistants and design assistants, it allows us to be better and use those as the tools they are and not stress out about, okay, am I going to be replaced? Functionally, I'm not afraid of AI taking my job. I'm afraid of someone, who really knows how to use the AI tool sets available to all of us really well taking my job. All right. So how are we going to go about this? I've spent some time delving into, okay, the why. What is this? How is this going to help you be different? Let's get down to brass tacks. How do we functionally build a strong personal brand? Know thyself. It's the classic from the Greeks to the Romans throughout antiquity. Advice from the sages and brilliant minds was to take the time to self-examine, live a self-examined life, look back into the past, look back into the experiences you've had from your life, from the world of work, from your career up to this point. The beauty of designing a career is that you get to be the storyteller. You get to craft the narrative of what got you to this point. The further I get down the road, the more I can look back and say, wow, that thing 10 years ago that felt like a total detour into a weird subset that I thought I would never use, that actually taught me some really good skills about forming organizational culture or customer service in an environment that I did not have any background experience in. So that's the joy and beauty of internalizing your life experiences up to this point. Being able to say, okay, I did learn something from that thing that at the time felt totally out of left field or useless or whatever, fill in the blanks. So spending that time, having your journal, going to those, whether it's a silent retreat or just like taking an hour a week, doing a walk in the woods or down the street or to your favorite coffee shop or tea shop, getting a nice warm drink and just kind of like doing some self-reflection, some introspection right before bed is a great time. Doing a daily journal, doing an assessment of what went well, what maybe didn't go well, and then diving into that and using that over time and starting to see like, okay, there are some trends here in who I am, the way I react to the world at large, and functionally, I'm starting to see some patterns emerge. So maybe this is the way that I am. All right. So, like I said, we are the product of our backstories, and that's everything from our family of origin to our gender, ethnicity, our beliefs, our hobbies, the relationships, the people we like to surround ourselves with. It's this conversion of all the factors that make you you. And this is your superpower because nobody has the same mix of background, experiences, preferences. It's so widely varied that this is the crux of what distills down and gives you that, your unique perspective on the world. No one looks through your eyes on the world like you do. So it comes through this lens. This is your interpretation. And yes, it can be your strengths. It can frankly also be your weaknesses. Owning and building your personal brand is as much capitalizing on your strength as recognizing those things that, okay, maybe that's an area that I'm not particularly gifted in. Or, when I'm on a team, I would need to fill in this gap in my skill set because I know I'm not as good at time management, or I'm not hyper organized, or I can spin out into endless iterations and need someone to bring me back down to earth. So really just looking at all these things, the things that you're proud of, also honestly the things that maybe you're like, I'm not so stoked on that. And the things you love, your hobbies, the things that draw you in. This is all data. It's all data you can use to mine to reveal the true you. And honestly, some of this stuff is kind of hard to see. You may need to ask a family member or a friend who's known you a long time to hold up a mirror. It's really hard to read the label of the bottle when you're inside the bottle. So this is where it's good to surround yourself with people who will give you the straight straight message and tell you, yeah, you're really great at this, or maybe you're not so great at this. And being able to hear that, accept it in humility, and say, okay, that's really good, useful information that I can use to formulate who I am. And man, if this person over here says I'm being perceived that way, and I'm hearing that same thing over here, maybe it means, this is the way I'm coming across, whether intentionally, unintentionally, or otherwise. Maybe it's something you're proud of. Maybe it's something like to address or work on. In any case, other people around us are so useful and really vital for holding up a mirror to us and how we're wired. Assessments. I am a huge assessment geek. Tools like the Strengths Finder from Gallup, Myers-Briggs. Um, Assessments can be very, very powerful. That being said, they are descriptive. They're not prescriptive. So to use assessments well, they're not meant to put you in a box and like put a label on you and say, oh, INTP. It's meant, used properly, they open your eyes to aspects of your personality. And that's why, I'm a huge advocate for taking as many as you can, because they're different lenses. The things that the Strengths Finder will reveal are different than what the Myers-Briggs will reveal, are different from what the FIRO-B will reveal. So if you haven't had a chance to really deep dive, or if maybe did these when you first came out of school and haven't circled back to them in a while, maybe go back to your data, retake it. If it's been 15 years since you took the Strengths Finder, see if some things have changed. Myers-Briggs is a little less changeable. Another one I've come across recently is the Enneagram, Enneagram, 9 typologies. Some people say this is the least changeable because it gets at core wiring and the ways in which we are at root. But remember, they're not perfect. Use them to open your eyes. Don't feel like, oh man, they're not meant to be an excuse. They're not meant to be a label. They're a way that you can examine yourself, and a way you can get outside of your own head. And oftentimes I've found good value in looking at other people who are your build or your number and saying, oh, okay, so that's what that looks like from the outside. Can be really useful. So assessments, worth the time, worth the energy. Set aside some time, approach them slowly. Don't rush through them, and really just, see what emerges if you haven't spent time on assessments recently. Getting down to it. So I always do well with examples. I'm going to give you an example from my experience. Let's get to this in practice. Values. Values are the roots of who we are. They run deep into our hearts, our minds, our spirits. They're a product of our background, our backstory, our family of upbringing. Functionally, values are just that. They're those things we put up on a pedestal and say, okay, these are things in my life that hold high value for me, that I'm going to shift time and space and energy in order to focus on. So, personal values. I like to achieve about five. Here are some in your mind that I really, I've always been curious. I've always been eager for the new, getting out of my bubble, getting out of my lane, just really enjoy learning from other people. Connection, whether that's human connection or drawing connection between, what can I learn as a designer from this industry over here that seemingly at first glance looks totally unrelated. Truth, getting to fundamental truth. Maybe it's my background in journalism, but I love asking questions, love investigative journalism, relevance, and then spirit, embracing the intangible. So in your life, in your journaling, see if you can get to, you know, three, no more than five, but really get at each of these words of, okay, what are those things that I will move time and space that I'm going to take the time and energy to really fixate on and dive into? And then, work those up. I heard a brilliant thing recently where, so if you've spent any time with software, I know we have some UI and UX designers in the space, you're familiar with the concept of a README document. I heard recently about a manager who wrote a README document for themselves. So this was something that she could give to her direct reports where it laid out, like we said earlier, clarity is kind. It laid out, it was like an operating manual for her. So it was like everything from these are the hours in which I respond to email. These are the ways in which I like to connect, whether that's face to face, over Teams or chat. I thought that was a brilliant idea. How much more clarity can you bring to the people around you if you're like, hey, here's my operating manual. You can't be much clearer or more generous than that. Um, we are known by our affiliations. So those groups we draw into our orbit, these can be groups we donate funds to or whose values really align with what we're all about. These are some that I just love, in for multiple reasons. But at heart, they share, the values that I talked about earlier. They are manifested in the world at a larger scale by these organizations. So think about it. I'm asking you, what are the organizations you find affiliation with? Organizations like ADPList that have clearly articulated this is the type of world in which we want to live. And we believe the world would be a better place if X or Y was maybe decreased or increased. And then you get to look at the ways that creatively organizations confront challenge and articulate what they stand for and their values. So spend some time thinking about saying, okay, who do I really align with? And how do they give voice to what they stand for? And how do they explain their beliefs of the world in which we, should all live? That can be a really powerful way to say, okay, this is what, you get some clarity about what you stand for through that lens. Role models. Role models can be extremely powerful because they can show us new ways of being. Um, that said, the caveat is there's rarely one role model who does all the things very, very well. So in my life, I have role models in specific subsets. I trust Scott Galloway for strategy, corporate governance, investing, mindset. Marcus Collins, one time head of strategy for Wyden Kennedy. He has his thumb on the pulse of culture. He's an amazing researcher. I trust him for persuasion and developing narratives in a cultural context. So maybe think about who your role models are, who you go to for things like meaning, purpose, wholeness. There's a whole broad set of things in which you can delve into, but whose voice do you trust in this cultural moment? Your role models might not even be alive. We can dive back into history through the works, some of the great books that have been written. You may find someone who lived 200 years ago to be profoundly inspiring, the way they believed, the way they operated in the world in which they advocated for. Doesn't necessarily mean they did everything perfectly, but maybe you really love that specific person's perspective on industriousness or persistence. I really love the work that Ryan Holiday is doing in bringing back some of the concept of stoicism, a philosophy that's 2,000 years old, just as relevant now as it was back then. The power of being a calm, non-anxious presence in a world that's oftentimes on fire. Man, that's powerful stuff. Um, Consider layering on a craft. Now, this is something that augments you, and choose a craft that's a bit. Simon Sinek has this concept of an infinite game. Choose a craft that's a bit of an infinite game, that there will always be people ahead of you who are that much better at it, and a craft that's transferable across any career pivot, any organizational pivot. There are skills like public speaking, like compelling writing, like rock solid project and timeline management that you can pick up and carry with you wherever you go. By bolting these on to your skill set, if you choose a path, you become a better character. I'm a huge fan of RPGs. So, when you're building out a character, you can choose your skill class. So this is a little bit like choosing the skill class for your life. And these things, chosen properly, like you can just always be getting better at them. And you can become known as a person who is gifted in that specific subset. And that's the beauty of a craft. It's just something you can continually be refining, improving your skill set at, and it will help set you apart, define you, differentiate you, and again, set you apart in a highly competitive world and give you just something you can lean on, regardless if you shift and change directions over the course of your life. All right, so I'm going to recap it, and then we'll get into some Q&A time. But I wanted to circle back on what I shared today. Your personal brand is you. It's your distillation of the story thus far, your family of origin, your origin story, the hero's journey on which you've been to find yourself at this exact point in your life. It is your fingerprint, and properly explored, properly dived into, if you spend the time unpacking it, owning those experiences and interweaving them into that fabric that is your life, it can substantially set you apart and make you unique. Definitely decommoditize you and make you truly, one in a billion, and make you more unified internally, because you'll know who you are, you'll know what you stand for, you'll know what you bring to a team, and it'll just make you happier because you'll be able to achieve that internal consistency of, I'm the type of person who will do this or won't do this or does really well on this type of team. Oh, I'm looking at this role over here. Does who I am fit with what that organization says they believe? No? Maybe I'll, continue on to look for the next opportunity. Yes? Amazing. We've shown that we're probably aligned here. It is a journey. It is a continual evolution. It isn't something that you pull out the stone tablet, you carve it in stone, and it is forever set. Exploration, discovery is something that you have the opportunity to delve into across your entire life. I'm a huge believer in remaking ourselves. The stuff we're learning now about our ability to remap our neurobiology, to overcome past trauma, to move and evolve ourselves. We are fundamentally dynamic beings until the day we exit this plane of existence. So take solace in that, embrace the changing nature, and then know that for this type of exploration, you might need to put your phone on silent. You might need to get into the outdoors, and really take the time. We're all unique, so spend some time with yourself. You may need to get out of your typical environment in order to do this exploration, or you may need to dive back into the archives and look at the projects you did years ago, or you may need to like schedule 5 coffees over the next 5 weeks and reconnect with people who you haven't chatted with over the past few years and say, what did you see about me? Like, please hold up a mirror and just non-judgmentally receive what others around you are saying. It's like I said, it's hard to look at ourselves when we're looking out through our own eyes. So surround yourself with genuine, honest people who want you to become better. We're the sum total of the five people we surround ourselves with. Surround yourself with people who are willing to give you that honest feedback, lift you up, hold up that mirror and say, hey, have you looked at this aspect of yourself? And then professional therapy, professional counseling in terms of overcoming that which has come before, integrating ourselves. That is all very worthwhile, worth investment of time and resources in order to get to a whole integrated self. All right, we have some time, so I want to open it up. I want to hear from everyone in the room here. Questions, put them in the chat. If you asked it before, feel free to insert it again at the bottom. I want to make this time useful for you. So please, Lily's going to help me, and we're going to want to be useful. One of the insecurities of not going all in with building and promoting brand is the thought that I don't know enough or I'm really good. How do you suggest we overcome insecurities while moving forth with building our personal brand? Asha. Such a good question, Asha. Thank you for asking. So the weird thing about building confidence is that stacking up victories is what gets you confidence. Like confidence is one of those things where you almost just have to run through that wall. Um, Going into COVID, I had a background in public speaking, but I did a weird thing where I joined Toastmasters. And if you're not familiar with Toastmasters, it's an international organization, chapters around the world. People meet in mutually supportive groups to work on their public speaking skills. Meetings are, they're kind of like Rotary meetings where they have a standard, there's prepared speeches, there's tabletop speeches where someone will give you a prompt. You have like no time. You have to talk about it for 10, for a minute or a minute and a half. It is as hard and as terrifying as that sounds. Um, but deliberately putting challenging things in front of ourselves, and overcoming those. And honestly, it you can do that at a very small level. If we learn anything from that book, Atomic Habits, it's like incremental. You know, you may find it terrifying to send that email. You may find it impossibly terrifying to sit down and have that face-to-face conversation. Do that which is genuinely challenging for yourself, and don't be afraid to stack up those small wins. um, Even if and the only measure is yourself. So if this for you feels like a genuine challenge, and you can look at yourself and say, if I overcome this, and then it's just a matter of stacking those up. Confidence builds over time. If you hate public speaking, get yourself into a public speaking situation. It's just one of those things that there's no way to do it except just to do it. And surround yourself in those situations with generous, honest people. The thing I love about Toastmasters and those chapters around the world, people will give you direct, kind feedback, but they'll also say, well done for putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the line. Um, there's value in making the effort, and then having people around you who can support you and say, well done. You're going to do it again, and it'll be better the next time. So hopefully that helps, Asha.
All right. Thanks, Tom, for jumping on that. My apologies. My mic was muted. And
Nice.
also, I wanted to say that that was a great question, Asha. And to the rest of the
Mhm.
chat, thank you for being so engaged. I haven't seen the most engaged chat until the session. But also, since unfortunately we don't have enough time, go ahead and upvote your favorite questions so that Tom can get to them, to those most upvoted ones. So, all right, we'll move on to the next question. This one's by Anushka. I am a young designer who just graduated this year. I see a lot of people around me freelancing and building their own personal brand. But what they have is the credibility with years of experience. How can I start to build my personal brand?
Mm. Yeah, it's that catch-22 of you're out in the world and you need experience to get the next role, but no one will hire you until you get that experience. Yeah, it's getting out into the world and getting those having experiences and, figuring out who you are, starting from, and who you are may start as just that rough pencil sketch of, I think I might be like this. Try that out. I think I might be a good project manager. I'm going to go project manage for that nonprofit who could really use the help. They won't pay me, but it'll allow me to trot out the skill, see if it works. So no one ever built a personal brand or figured out their wiring by sitting still. You need to inject motion into it. That motion could be having informational coffees, having informational interviews, pinging someone on LinkedIn and saying, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time to ask you this burning question about your perspective on the latest innovations in the industry? Create movements, physical movement, take a walk every day, get into contact with people around you, but however possible, start building that and getting feedback. If you initiate, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you put an action out in the world, you're going to get that valuable feedback that will say, maybe that's not a value, or maybe I don't really love that tool, or maybe that thing isn't as cool as I thought it would be, and I'm going to change direction. Good question.
Awesome. Thank you, Anushka. And moving on to Adam. Adam asks, how can I build a consistent brand when I have many interests? Whenever I want to explore a new path, I get overly excited and change my entire LinkedIn profile and update my bio wherever it exists. But then I
Mm.
change my mind again. Not a good look.
Yeah, the beauty. So, in developing your interests and values, there's a little bit of rank stacking that happens, Adam. So, challenge yourself as you're articulating things and to put them in order. Are there things that fundamentally won't change? For me, top of the stack, immovable is family. Career will move around, but family is fixed. So maybe there are those core interests that are unchanging, and then you can start building out from there. There's the stuff that shifts, and maybe don't advertise it on LinkedIn. Maybe some of that exploration is just experiments. You're doing personal experiments for yourself. But as you define those core North Star ideals that will change regardless of whether you pivot from here to there, move from Porter Ranch, California to New York, are those core things? And this is what I help founders realize. And the question I always ask them, are there core values that will be the same and true at 1 million as they were at 5 million, 10, 100? The company that did this really well was Zappos. They were always all about delivering happiness. That was their core narrative that they told themselves. They shared it out in the marketplace. It was true from their first storefront all the way up to acquisition by Amazon. So as much as possible, key in on those core unchangeables and let the frothy outer stuff come and go, but build it. And as things get confident, just lock those in and say this is part of the core. Good question.
Amazing. Alexandru asks, I see people building their brand and product design by doing podcasts, vlogs, becoming mentors, or speaking at conferences. Should the focus be more on becoming more public versus getting better at what you do? Where should one invest more time?
Yeah, there's never been more opportunities to put your perspective out in the world, whether that's through a podcast, whether that's through a blog, just consistent social media posting. Um, if that is genuinely something that you really want to go after, do it. I would over index on really solidifying um, getting better at what you do because the better you are at what you do and the more accolades you build up behind that, and that could be certifications, that could be managers who say, holy cow, this person is amazing, they blew my mind. um, Other people start ringing your bell versus you having to like be the one who's advertising for yourself. So I would say if you invest in getting really, really good at what you do, other people are going to start singing your praises. There's that classic book titled "Be So Good They Can't Ignore You." Be so good they can't ignore you, and then the rest will follow.
That is an amazing book. I have it on my bookshelf and I
So good.
highly recommend it too. Awesome. All right, so the next question is from Greg. It's easier to see how a personal brand helps sell yourself to a new job or client, but how have you used it to influence your behaviors within a company?
Mm. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Um, a strong personal, it comes back to building on those values. So if you know what your values are, it gives you a really nice yardstick for things. Say you enter into a situation where you're kind of thinking, there are two paths I could take in this meeting. Um, I could be the diffuser. I could maybe be the bomb thrower and just fire this all up, or I could be the objective perspective who says, okay, everyone, take a deep breath. Let's look at this rationally. The path in which you choose, I guess that's three paths, but the analogy still stands. So the path you choose in that interaction is based upon those values. And because those values are at the heart of who you are, the way you were brought up, the world that you want to see manifested, what you want to see perpetuated in the world around us, that will give you a really nice North Star to key in on. It will help you achieve that consistency throughout your life, where it will feel less like you're being blown about by global trends, the winds of change, organizational leadership, and more like, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. And I know how the type of person who stands for this would interact and engage in this type of situation. Um, Hopefully that helps answer your question, Greg.
Very well. So we do have time for maybe one more question. So squeeze one in. This one's from Erin. In what tangible ways does a
Mm,
personal brand manifest? It still seems very intangible to me.
it's a great, great question. So this is and this is the thing I learned about design by doing, because a good graphic designer, a good commercial designer, will help you. So a font conveys a feel. Color theory conveys a feel. So when it comes down to showing, the way you show, the way you display, the font you choose for your resume, the carriage you bring to the art direction you bring to your headshot. There's that aesthetic side. Um, I'm a writer, so I love speaking, looking at tonality and voice. So your personal brand comes through in the types of things you post on LinkedIn, you post on Facebook, the types of comments you share, the things you reshare, the things you look at, the way in which you speak, tone of voice. So it is fundamentally a little fuzzy and intangible, but you see personal brand born out in the interactions you have online, in person. It shines through in the charities you support, in how you put out your time, in how you choose to engage on the weekends. Are you the go to the library type? Are you the go out with friends, the clubs type? Um, it would be easier to list the ways in which a personal brand doesn't manifest, because it's just the way in which we live and breathe and go through the world. It's the words we use. It's the way in which we appear. So many, which I know is like very fuzzy and weird and intangible. Um, but it's like once you see it, and once you achieve that consistency, it feels really, really good, because you can start to see I'm the same across every possible touch point. and the people in my orbit know what they get when they come into contact with me? Great question.
All right, perfect. That's all the time we have for Q&A. I do also want to say thank you, Tom, for being a wonderful speaker today in this panel. That was amazing. I loved your metaphor to the skill class as a gamer, and I think that really made everything stick. But also want to shout out to the audience. Thank you all for being so great, so engaged. I see everyone's commenting on each other's comments and answering each other's questions. But in the case we didn't reach your question, Tom is very kind and he has his LinkedIn here. So feel free to connect with him. And he says he's also open to connecting through ADPList. Tom, is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can search and find me there. Always love to chat through this stuff. And yeah, if you want to bounce any ideas off or just connect, I have a pretty broad network on LinkedIn. So always love connecting with other awesome people. And I found that ADP draws in some very exceptional people. So reach out, say hi, please.
Absolutely. And if you couldn't tell already from today's presentation, Tom will not bite. He is very kind and helpful. So, well, I hope everyone have a good rest of your Be More Festival. We're going to end the session now. And thank you, Tom. Is there any last words you'd like to share?
Go forth and build genuine, authentic personal brands. The world needs what your unique thing, and just it's worth it. Spend the time and surround yourself with people who will hold up good mirrors and allow you to see yourself well.
Amazing. Awesome. All right, then. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your session. Thanks, Tom, as well. Bye.